Hello, heathens.
Hello, heathens.
Oh man, how's your week been?
Man, it was pretty good actually. I was busy.
Dude, I was so busy. This week and last
hmm
week, I've been crazy busy, and I'm like really thankful about it, actually.
Yeah, I was very thankful. I started to actually I thought it was a good idea because I got a candle for Christmas and it was just sitting there. And I started lighting it and I put it like right there where I mix the color. So it's almost like I'm in front of the fire and I'm like mixing in my cauldron and then like
Your tiny cauldron.
yeah, it's my little tiny cauldron. I'm like, it's so cool to be like, this is a little witchy and I kind of like it.
Heck yeah. My week was pretty
Um,
good too. Just so busy, but I'll tell you what, we've had some really nice weather here in Michigan. By the time this
yeah.
comes out, it'll be cold again, but remember the days where we had the sun and it was 70 and I was home all day yesterday, thankfully. And oh, I had all the windows open. I spring cleaned.
hmm
I had candles going and incense going, and I was like, and I live again. I live again, and I love it. I love
The
it here.
the resurrection has occurred.
Yes. It's like spring and fall are my favorite because it's just so comfy and the sun's out, but it's not blazing hot. It's just, oh God, it was so good. So
I
good.
agree. I agree. It was really nice yesterday.
Heck yeah, man. Um, okay, so today we're going over part two of the Black Madonna. Because we still had some stuff we really couldn't fit into that first episode, and at that point we don't want to do a 2, 3 hour long episode, whatever it would have been, just because, it's easier to break it up. It's a lot of information that we're throwing at you guys. So, especially with new concepts and new concepts to me, I guess. Like
hmm
the Black Madonna. Um, so there were a few things that we talked about in the last episode that we wanted to go over in this one, and that's partly the history, some of the backstory of like where she came from, all this stuff. And then if you guys remember, had read in this article that somebody had said that the Black Madonna and the Mother Mary could represent the Ark of the Covenant and the Holy Grail. So I did my own research because I went back to that article. I found it again, and there's no explanation. There's no going deeper into that or anything. So I looked it up because I was like, I have to know this. Um, and when I was looking it up, I couldn't find anything specifically of anybody claiming this other than that person. But now that I researched it, it makes sense. So.
Oh.
I looked up what the representation of the Ark of the Covenant was and the Holy Grail so that, we're not going too deep into it because the Holy Grail itself could be a whole nother. There's Gnostic, there's esoteric, there's pagan beliefs, there's
hmm
Christian beliefs. There's a lot of beliefs behind both of these. Um, but the Ark of the Covenant represents God's covenantal relationship with his people, his provisions, and guidance throughout history. And it represents the presence of God and foreshadows the coming of Christ. So, in other words, the Ark of the Covenant could also be represented by the Mother Mary.
Oh. Oh. Okay.
It makes sense now, right? Because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
she birthed Christ, she was the coming of
Yes.
Christ.
She is the covenant. Like,
Yet she is the
yeah.
covenant of God with
Right.
his people because through her she birthed God's child.
Yes.
Well, right? I was like,
I, I was like, I
oh,
was like, oh.
uh-huh, uh-huh. So the other one this one was also like oh. Okay, so I have two versions of what the Holy Grail represents because it's not the Holy Grail goes beyond just Christianity, it goes beyond pagan. There's a ton, but I picked two that made a lot of sense to me. So the Holy Grail in a pagan image stands as a cup of regeneration, and it's the vessel in which the life of the world is preserved, and which symbolizes the body of the goddess or the Great Mother. And then in the Christianized form, the grail is the chalice used by Christ at the Last Supper, which held his blood following the crucifixion, which all represents the Black Madonna.
hmm
I got chills saying that. Isn't that fucking? I was like, okay, I appreciate the statement, but I also wish the explanation would have been there. But now that I had to study it myself, which is what we invite you guys to do all the time, I now I'm going to have that in my head forever.
Well, and that's the thing, a lot of this stuff, especially when you're talking about alchemy, especially when you're talking about the great work, especially when you're talking about religion, even, it's all about your interpretation and you doing the work. So sitting in a pew waiting for stuff to come to you and just taking it for face value is not necessarily what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to do exactly what you just did. We
Yeah.
take something and we study it until it's dead, and then we regurgitate it.
Yep. Yep.
Hmm.
And like now, that's just how learning goes in general because they teach you to, because we take a lot of classes for hair and things, and I am I have this in my head because even I will be teaching classes in the future too for my salon for our assistants. And I was thinking about it, and I'm like, one thing that has always stuck with me from a class from Joe Blackwell, she was some salon owner in New York. She said that
Hmm.
you only remember the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes of a class or a
Hmm.
lecture or speech or
Hmm.
anything like that because everything in between gets to be like so monotoned in your head essentially. And I
It
was
gets
like,
lost, yeah.
ugh. So it's like that's part of it too, is like, you listen to a TED talk, you listen to a podcast, things like that. I'm sure you guys like go a little brain dead and come back in when we go on a left turn and then you're back in it again, because all of a sudden we got funny and now we're back to spewing information into your ears. So
Right.
I totally get it, but it's like that also, you got to keep that in mind that like until you do the research, until you go and you do the searching and you find the answers that really ring true to you, you're not going to keep the information in your body and in your head.
Right. Right. This is why every time, we read Eckhart Tolle or we read, I don't know, I can't even think of a book.
For
That's the only one.
agreements.
The Four Agreements. Every time we read it again, it's like it's a new fucking book. And I'm like, did I not read this the first time?
Yeah, I've only read The Power of Now three fucking times. Could I tell you everything that's in it? Absolutely not. Could I give you some pointers? Sure. Am I going to
Right.
read it for a fourth time and think it's a brand new book? Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, because there's two things that's going on. The first thing is like you as a child learning the information. So like now we're talking ABCs, now we're talking this is how you form a sentence, this is what this word means, blah, blah, blah. And then we get it to a place of like the next level. And you look at the same information just at a higher level.
Hmm. Yeah, because
It's like milk for babies and meat for men.
yeah, it makes so much sense because it's like we've both done this, but I'm asking more of a rhetorically for you guys. Have you ever read a book that seems so far above your pay grade that you can't even understand what the hell one of the sentences means? Because we've been there multiple times, multiple times. I remember when you were actually reading reading, listening, regardless, you were consuming a book about, I think it was Sophia or something, and I
Hmm.
was listening to it with you for a little bit, and I was like, I have no fucking idea what they just said. You started laughing, and you go, "Yeah, me neither." I think I got this, but I'm not even sure that that's right.
Right, right. Well, I remember even like watching Teal Swan at some point
Oh
and
God,
like
yeah.
not like it's almost like at some point she was talking a foreign language, even though I recognized all the words.
Yeah. It's
I was
like
like,
gibberish.
yeah, I was like, none of that penetrated this, none of it. It like,
Yes. So yeah, I guess moral to that little tidbit is do your damn research. It sticks better. You'll feel better. You'll feel like you have the knowledge.
hmm.
And then,
Hmm.
you can keep branching off of that once you have that foundation in there.
Hmm. Well, and this is how we get evolution.
Yes.
It's not just one philosopher that we look at. It's not one, divine being that we're listening to. They're all a different type of version of the same story. Even if we go back to the Bible and the Quran and, the Old Testament, Like all of this has even, that's not the oldest story. That
Right.
came from another story. It came from Babylon. It came from the Egyptians. It came from like Mesopotamia. Like those are the oldest stories that are just keep kind of reinventing themselves.
Absolutely. And that's like why we want to do this portion of the Black
Hmm.
Madonnas because it's just wild that, I said this last episode, and I'll probably say this many more times because your girl really enjoys history. I enjoy art history. I enjoy history behind these beings, behind the stories. 99% of the time, it's theories. And theory is something that we can hope is true, but we don't have enough evidence to back it and prove it. So like even
Right.
today when we're talking about the history of the Black Madonna, they're all theories and it's something to mull over and it's something to think about because you could keep trying to trace this if it interests you because a lot of people have tried and it's very interesting to hear different takes and different versions of what happened.
Very much so. I mean, even like one of the things that I was reading is something about how um God had made like daylight, and then they also made darkness, which was night. And like those two have to exist simultaneously. Like they don't, one doesn't exist without the other.
Yep. Yeah, even in the beginning of the Bible, it does say, in the beginning there was darkness, and he birthed light out of that darkness.
Yes.
And I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, because what was it is, oh, well, this is from wisdom. So wisdom was actually the first thing that God made. And she is a female energy. Um, this also correlates to Sophia. Sophia is sometimes called is wisdom, depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah, so I didn't hear any of that because I clicked a button accidentally on my headphones and I heard something about she is and something else. And I was like, I have no idea what she's saying right now. I'm just gonna nod my head, yes. So if you could repeat for me, I would love to hear what you just said.
Oh God. Oh, God created wisdom first. It was the first thing that he made was wisdom. And
Okay.
wisdom is a female energy. So this correlates to Sophia. It might correlate to the Black Madonna as well. I haven't seen anything that says that, but since all of this is kind of going together, I'm at this point assuming. And we all know about assuming.
Yes. And in my head, when you say that, I feel that Sophia and the Black Madonna are two separate entities. And I think about it because the only thing that really makes sense in my head is that we know a lot of these religions and these theories can correlate a lot, right? So I'm thinking to Greek deities and how there is Zeus and Hera, but then there's Artemis. And that to me is the Black Madonna, God, and Sophia,
Hmm.
where it's like they're separate, but I think the Black Madonna was first in my head so far. It's the only thing that can make it make sense because like the Black Madonna was here, God came in, got birthed out of that, God made wisdom, wisdom is Sophia.
Hmm.
But then there's like other isn't there stories of Sophia being God's consort? Or am I wrong in that? Because I really don't know enough about that.
Well, that's the thing is you got to go back to the Gnostics because that's really where it's at. Like you have to go dive deep down in Gnostic texts. Like the
Mm.
Nahamani is the book that has all that stuff in it. And of course it's read just like the Bible. It's very cryptic and like, but you have a better brain for words, so you might actually understand it more better than I have.
Oh,
Good
all
luck. I'll
these.
send it to
I
you
know, right?
through.
All these freaking can of worms I keep fucking opening. Better have a I'm telling you guys, when Nicole and I are old, be fucking prepared, man. Be prepared because we're gonna be really weird. We're gonna be talking cryptic too, and you're either gonna get it because you've been on this journey with us or you're not. And I'm sorry if you don't because it's gonna be weird.
It's weird. It's going to be weird. I'm okay with it.
I am also okay with it.
I actually told somebody, I was like, I can't wait to be old. I can't wait to be like 90.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes.
Think about all the shit we're gonna know. Oh man.
I mean, like Lori Cabot, like
Yeah.
by that time, all we'll have to do is this.
Yes. Oh, yes. I'm claiming that. Yeah. Uh-huh. Um, okay, so we kind of have two things here. Nicole has the history of the Black Madonna within alchemy. I have the history of the Black Madonna within the cult of Isis and how it came to Europe. So why don't we do the your portion first before we go into the little bit about Egypt and Europe and stuff.
Okay. One thing that is this starts with this article that I have starts with is while all things were in quiet silence and the night was in the mid of her course, thy almighty word, O Lord, came down from the heavens, from thy royal throne. And this is Wisdom 18:14 through 15. So the where we start at here is the blackness of the cosmos, the midnight primordial mother that bursts the seed of creation. This is where we know the blackness is where everything starts. This is the substance that you have to congealed into matter. This is where everything starts. You always start with like a blank black sheet. That's like if you put a seed in the earth, it's in darkness. If you plant a seed in a womb, it's in darkness.
Thank you for making that easy.
Well, tell them they're the ones that are giving it out to me. So this is also the we also want to take into note that this is from creation, but this is also where we dissolve back into. So everything comes together, you're formed into all of these molecules, these atoms, blah, blah, blah. And then when you're done, it all dissolves back into the matter, into the earth. Um, Out of the depths of the space, stars, sun, and planets form. This has also been known as the prima materia. This is the first substance in alchemy. This is the essence, the original essence of it.
Mm.
Alchemy is a couple things. So it's the birthplace of chemistry, right?
Yes.
So it is it's a big thing about the philosopher's stone or um the one thing that they're trying to get so they live forever, or the big thing that Dee and Kelly and a lot of alchemists were doing in the 14th century was turning lead into gold. This was the big thing that they wanted to do. They wanted to turn lead into gold. Um, but also on the inner work. So when you're doing alchemy outside of yourself and you have these elements like sulfur, salt, and mercury, which are the three building blocks of everything. When you have these elements and you're trying to break them down, you're trying to break them down to the purest form where they don't have any impurities in them. So, like your essential oils are exactly the easiest way to represent this. But you're also doing it when you're doing it out into a chemistry lab, you're also doing it inside. So there's these things. So this is, I think, where a lot of religions are trying to get out of like our original sin or our dirty parts or like our impurities that we have, which is basically an unbalance of all the elements. So like earth, air, water, fire. So if you have too much fire in you, you're tending to get frustrated real quick. You're mad really easily. We know these people, right? Um, Water, not enough boundaries, too much emotion, unstable, that kind of stuff, right? Earth, there's, sloth and laziness and stubbornness and not willing to move. Air would be really flighty or even like a harsh because air cuts through things. So we take these parts of these elements that everything that's on this earth has a positive and a negative side. It's polarity, right? So you have to go back, and what we're trying to do is be down the middle path. We're trying to keep this centered. As an alchemist, as you're transform, this is where a lot of those philosophers they had to go through their own alchemy to get to the point where they can hold divinity in their being so they could share it with the rest of the world because our bodies and our substance is not going to hold that kind of purity. It's too pure.
Yeah.
um like when you get an essential oil that your skin doesn't like, because I have some of those.
Peppermint oil. Oh, that's a good
y-
one.
yeah, like you break out or you get a rash or something, it's too pure. You have to cut it with something for it to not be so pure.
Yes.
So in alchemy, we're trying to do the opposite. Uh, so the substantial plane, the science of transmuting of primavera of the preconscious soul into the gold of the awakening soul that is reunited with the cosmic ground. So this is the same thing that we just basically said. We're trying to wake that soul up. We're trying to, this is what they talk about, like when awakening happens, when we're trying to kind of be more aware of, and we use these terms a lot, obviously, awakening or woke is a good weaponized way of doing it. And it's funny because it's like we need to wake up people so they notice things, but we also weaponize it so people don't do it, right?
Yes.
It's like that threshold guardian that's like you're not ready to see what's on the other side because it might push you over your mental threshold. So that's when you do these little things so that way you can more interpret what you're seeing instead of reacting to it.
Yeah, it's so that the guardian will let you pass the threshold and know that you're going to be
Right.
safe instead of letting you pass the threshold and knowing that you're not going to be safe and you're going to suffer for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly what it is. If you're afraid to go into the woods, that's that guardian keeping you safe.
Yeah.
So, um, we go to awareness, communication through body, spirit, and soul. We're trying to also, in alchemy, in the great work, which is what I think I'm in, I am in, I'm doing the great work. So, like, the ritual magic that we're doing, and this is one way to do it, obviously, there's multiple ways of doing it, but the one way that made sense to me was, or where spirit had led me was ritual magic. So this is kind of like Reiki for myself. So every time I do like the lesser banishing ritual, I am removing impurities from my energetic field and balancing each of the elements because that's where I'm at this stage. I am balancing and creating a foundation of energetical work. And the goal is to have a strong energetical body. So when physical death occurs and you don't have a container anymore, your energetical body keeps you from dissolving.
Whose brain hurty? Whose brain's hurting? Little brain hurty, because like that makes sense to me.
But this is the goal of alchemy. So, um, let me see here. Do you have any
Um,
questions?
yes, I do. Thank you. Thanks for feeling that. Because it's forming still a little bit. So I'm gonna try to get it out. Maybe you can help me make this make sense. Because I feel like the question is within alchemy beliefs, right? Because that's what we're talking about right now. If we don't build up our energetic body or etheric body, we don't keep our essence. We
Right.
go back to the cosmic mother, essentially, which is the Black Madonna. We
Yes.
dissolve. And for us to not dissolve and to keep learning, building, um, move on, move on. Does alchemy believe in reincarnation? Do you know?
Yes.
So, like, essentially, then we are keeping everything together so that when we reincarnate, we can tap into the knowledge we learned before.
Actually, you don't reincarnate.
Oh, okay, okay. We keep
So
moving on.
yeah, because you reincarnation is about evolution of the soul. So if
Okay,
you didn't learn your lessons or whatever, your soul keeps I don't have the book with me right now. There's a map of the soul that we've all seen when it was presented to us in history when um they thought the world was flat. So you see like where or everything revolved around the earth is where I first saw it. So it's a medallion, it's round, a disc. And Earth is in the middle, and then you have Mercury, and then you have Venus, and then you have blah 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 blah. Like it goes all the planets, and then you have the dragon that is keeping us inside.
okay. I think I have seen this before. Yes.
Hmm. So that represents your journey, your soul's journey, and you go through like Mercury and Venus, and once you get up through that and the fixed stars, once you get past the fixed stars, if you break that dragon, that Ouroboros, that's when you stop reincarnating. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then essentially, you've done all your purification. Just to reiterate this for myself and hopefully for others too, but more for myself here. Because I think I have this like little bit of foundation for um alchemy, but it's a walkway, it's not a house. So essentially what we're doing is we're purifying all we're
Impurities.
purifying ourselves to strengthen
Hmm.
our etheric body so that we can move out of Ouroboros and beyond and keep going with the knowledge that we gained here to then go on to the next step. It's almost like you were talking about with the guardian, the threshold is like we have to do this to be able to move on to the next, otherwise we will not be able to handle it technically with our etheric body.
Right, because you're going to dissolve
Yeah.
before you get there. Right, like you're not going to have enough to hold yourself together. Um,
This shit feeds my soul. This shit feeds my soul. So cool. Sorry. Continue,
no, it's
please.
good.
This is cool.
Oh, I guess I don't. There was something you said that sparked something, but I lost it. Uh, anyway, you can see once you start reaching out to a lot of these like symbols, like even the great dragon. If we take the dragon that's around it could be called the demiurge, which is Gnostic. It could be Satan, which is, Michael is uh defeating in the battle. Um, you can see these like little correlations that kind of like go together. So this is where the big thing is I already had this really strong feeling that all religions were meant they were either puzzle pieces to a bigger puzzle that we weren't standing back far enough to see it, or they're the same story translated in different filters.
Yes.
That's how I've kind of always saw it. So especially when you've got like Archangel Michael that like transcends in the Quran, but also in the Bible, and you're like, wait, why is the same guy Why is he still there? That
Yes.
was my question, right? So, um, alchemy. So alchemy is about 4,000 years old.
Just
The
four
science of,
thousand.
at least they say. I don't
Hmm.
know. I was gonna say 40,000, but that is not what it says. Because it
I
seemed
mean,
to,
4,000 years. A little. Just 4,000.
I know, I feel like that's not,
That's so long. That's so old.
mhm.
That's so old. Sorry, commentary over here in Peanut Gallery. That's
No,
so
it's
old.
seriously. I'm like, oh,
1,000 years old.
so it's got deep roots in, like I said, Egyptian, Babylonian, Greek, Chinese, India, Persian civilizations. This is all of they were all doing their own alchemy. In fact, you can go into like the Chinese history and they will show you their version of alchemy, which translates pretty much the same. The connection between the Black Madonna and alchemy as a prefigured Greco-Egyptian Hermetic form its beginnings. The black color attribute is Isis, was expressively present in the symbol of the secret doctrine that was coming out, the cosmic virgin. And virgin, I know this is also translated in a lot of ways, but virgin really means that she doesn't need anybody else.
Yes.
Right. It's
Yes.
not that she's untouched. It's not that whatever. It's that she really doesn't need anything. Um, Here's a little passage that Isis said to her son. Listen carefully, Horace, my son, for here I tell you the secret doctrine my that my grandfather Capys learned from Hermes, and I from Capys, when he honored me with this gift of perfection, perfect blackness. So there's even a part where there is a shit, I forgot her name. There is a woman that went to the King Solomon and she was taught, or she is known for saying, I am black and that is beautiful. It's this
It's in a
whole,
song for King Solomon. I
yeah.
actually had found that and I read that and it stuck with me because I haven't read the Bible in a long time. Because those of you that know. Um, Song of Solomon. I think it's a Song of Solomon, but I'll look it up if you want to continue.
Let's see. Trying to, so the Egyptian goddess Isis in this, as far as we know, is the first representation of the mother and child. So you have Isis and Horus.
I found it.
And this, okay.
It's the Song of Solomon in 1.5. And it says, I am black, but comely, O ye daughters of Jerusalem, as the tenant of Kedar, as the curtains of Solomon. Look upon not upon me, because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. My mother's children were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyards, but my mine own vineyard have I not kept. It's in the Songs of Solomon,
That's
chapter
very
1, verse
cool.
5.
Okay, that's very cool.
It's in the Bible.
Um, people,
The Bible.
what the people? Egypt at the time was thought of as a black fertile land, Isis as the black goddess of fertility, growth, and life. Um, that we don't need to know. All right. So they talk about the philosopher's stone, da da da. I don't know. Like that's what we're really trying to do, and what I have really like strived to do this week with the Black Madonna is not only invoke her essence, but understand and sit with her. So anytime, because of what you had said in the last one about how she loves us no matter what, like she, even like if we are um destroy her earth and all this kind of stuff, right? Like these really sins against like humanity or earth or whatever. And she loves us anyway. It really hit me. So it was kind of nice to kind of like carry her along with me in life this week. And I thought it was very um, enlightening, actually.
The mother of compassion.
Yeah, yeah.
I agree, yeah. It's made me feel a lot better too, I will say.
It's it's interesting because I feel like I've always been against femininity a little bit.
Mm,
And I think it was more because it was inauthentic.
yeah,
And with this, because it combines all of it, it feels more right.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
it
Like
does. Yeah, I get
it's
it.
complete.
It's not just this gross thing anymore.
Yeah, it's not like the lift, laugh, love kind of like, sign that we right now as women are supposed to be like, right? Like this really, and the fact that Kali is part of it, and like we have all these other dark goddesses that are scary or intimidating or whatever. And the fact that they're all aspects of her, I really like,
Me
and I
too.
really can sit home with.
I agree 100%. When I was saying this
Hmm.
shit's blowing my mind and I feel like I found my new deity, I definitely did.
Hmm.
Um, I have more to elaborate on the history with ISIS, cult of ISIS and ISIS of Egypt. So, ISIS of Egypt was the first recorded appearance of the Black Madonna. Again, keep in mind, everything that I'm going to be saying is not factual. It is theories that this is one that is heavily known and heavily talked about. The cult of Isis was the dominant religion of the Mediterranean during late Roman times, and it spread into Roman occupied lands. So this was like where they think the biggest form of where the Black Madonna came from, because they were saying Isis of Egypt was the Black Madonna.
Hmm.
Now, the city of Paris was also devoted to Isis, as well as a bunch of Roman cities and areas were to their deities. Um, like other Black figurines, Isis is a life-giving and healing goddess of the earth. That's why there's this big correlation between the two. Now, I read that outside of the presence of the cult of Isis, Helen, the mother of Constantine, back in ancient Europe, this is in the fourth century, brought the
Hmm.
Madonna to Constantinople from Jerusalem at the time, where there were debates and explorations on the meaning of Christ and Christianity. Because during this time, there was a very big connection, and there was just a knowing that we were more than just our physical bodies, and that there was this connection with the spiritual world. Now, by the end of the fourth century, the basic tenets of Christianity have been formed, and the Black Madonnas began to appear in various forms in Europe. Now, now in like modern times, there's around 500 Black Madonnas in Europe alone. The biggest icons are going to be the one that's in Poland, and then there's another one that's
Yeah.
um I can't remember. I didn't write it down. So look it up if you're very curious on where to go and see some of these. But now keep in mind from the fourth century to about the seventh or eighth century, we had this big connection with spirituality. Okay. We had Black Madonna's going up. We had Christianity had been formed, but in the seventh and eighth century, there was a dimming sense of the connection with the spiritual world that had been being experienced all over. And it was during that dimming constant consciousness that the Black Madonnas really came out in bigger numbers. So the Black Madonna, those 500 figurines hadn't come out until the seventh or eighth century, where it was starting to be all over the world. What I find fascinating about this, because this is my own take on it, not anything I've read, is that the Black Madonna had been established. We had it in Christianity, it had been foreign, but it hadn't spread until there was a dimming in spirituality and that
Yeah.
connection to the spiritual world. Now, there's another theory that said that the Black Madonnas became a fixture in the time of the Crusades to help shape the coming birth of the consciousness soul era, which is when we're starting to become more conscious that we are again. So there was this big consciousness, this lull, this big consciousness, this lull, and we're back into a big consciousness again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I find that super fascinating that during the lull is when the Black Madonna came out. Very big. Super, that's like when most of these 500, you know, um, well, Black Madonnas, I guess you could say, figurines, paintings, all these things that are huge with the Black Madonna came out. And I find it fascinating because they feel like in my mind is happening is there's almost this forgetfulness around her. We
Mm-hmm.
forget because we have all these new and shiny toys, but then when it comes
Yeah.
back, the new and shiny toys aren't new and shiny anymore, and it comes back to brass tacks, she's there.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I feel like that's kind of what we're doing right now is like if we look at what's going on in the earth. And now granted, like I also believe like this is always going on in the earth. It's not like we've had time of like really peace. I do slightly feel like we're still in the city of Babylon, and I haven't really confirmed that or not or anything. It's just like a little trinket that kind of like follows me around. Um,
Yeah, like
because
your
I
own little
just
hypothesis.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And no, sorry.
Squirrel.
Scroll. It was a phone call. I was like, no.
No.
Um, so I feel right now like with maybe this will spark something for people where Black Madonna starts to come out, or maybe she's coming out again. Maybe this will be the second, like, if we're going down. And I have been hearing, like, especially when we talk about our boys, like, I I haven't remembered them saying that, like, this is kind of the dark time because we're being birthed out of a canal.
Oh,
And we
yes.
know that, like, birth is, like, messy and kind of violent and, like, it's a big thing. But that canal is going to be, it's going to take a minute for us to come out before we see the light.
Right. That's a good correlation too. Correlation, not coincidences, because coincidences are not real.
Yes.
Let me not get on that high horse. Anyways.
Let high horse. Okay. So are you
Yep, that's what I had.
okay? So in alchemy, there's three stages, and one of the it's black, white, and red. Um, these are when you're burning a material, they're going to go through these three stages where like the substance or the material will go into black and then red and then white
Oh, yeah.
because
Okay.
it's being purified.
Mm.
So when you get as an alchemist, if you're burning a substance, the hardest part is to get that ash to go white unless you have everything right with you. That's why a lot of alchemists too, you know, they've had a lot of accidents, like catching their lab on fire or
Blowing
things
something up.
exploding.
Yeah.
Yes, this is the same thing because what's inside is in your laboratory.
Mhm.
It correlates. So if you see something over here that breaks, there's something inside of you that's causing that to break, sort of. You got to figure that one out on your
Yep, yep. I was like,
own.
my brain's stewing.
You're like, ah, God, ah, God. So, um, the first is called black or negredo, is the matter dissolved so as to release the two principles of sulfur and mercury. And these and there is a reduction of prima mabera in the shape of a sort of black or stone called the raven. At the same time, the practitioner suffers a dissolution of his or her individuality, which is a purification and undergoes the ordeal of death. And when we're talking about transformation and death, this is what we're talking about. So, your old habits that are no longer serving you, which is something we talk about all the time, you put it under this frustration or this fire to burn into black so it can die. And then you're left with like salts or um yeah, salts. Yes. Um, and this kind of thing doesn't happen just once. This happens over and over and over and over. It goes back to new level, new devil all the time.
Yep. But basically, what you're doing is when you burn down those salts are building blocks for something new, something stronger that you can use for your new level, new depth, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I'm not gonna go into that. Oh, right. Oh, this one. So the woman, I'm jumping around a little bit, but this said Sophia, and I stopped. This is how I now do research. The woman, the Virgin Sophia, the celestial Mercury, opens up the gates of the heaven in the heart. This process inwardly transmutes achievements of two personal desires into the desire of God. So what they're saying is as we transmute these imperfections and these pieces of us that are no longer serving us in the best way, we go from desiring material things to desiring that connection with God. And that's the shift. That's how you know you're kind of like, um, you know that you're doing the right thing or you're going in the right direction because, like, all those material things kind of have lost their luster or their sparkle. And now the sparkle for you is God or divinity to be next to commune with. Um, in such a way that the Virgin Sophia and the Holy Spirit coincides with the desire. The alchemist, through the purification, then experiences successive illumination. The black stone has become white.
Hmm.
So this is just showing that your black stone is moving into a new, your substance is going from black to white.
Yeah.
And after that, it goes into a red phase, and that's the third phase, where it goes through all of the colors of the rainbow and it ends up on red. Red this is what we're talking about when we're talking about the phoenix. Like it burns into ash and then it like rebirths into something new. It's a sacred fire, unites human and divinity in the limited with the unlimited. The red work enables one at the end of the alchemist process to the obtain the philosopher's stone, which changes the metal into gold.
And thus we have gold.
Mm. And then, yeah. Um, so this is the process is not something that you do in a weekend, or it really is a lifelong journey. Um, the and people will be called to this, like they'll just have a longing to this if they want to. It it's overwhelming at first, and that's kind of why you need like a mentor or a guide that to kind of guide you through it. Because again, when we go back to restating new patterns and new trails, you are kind of lost and you don't know, and you need sometimes that validation to
Yeah.
like, no, no, keep going. It'll get better, I promise. Especially like when you come to a point where you're upset, you don't know if you're doing it right, you are seeing things in one kind of way, and so you have to change that focus, that um awareness. You have to take another perspective on it, and we forget to turn our heads because we're
Right.
so focused on what we used to have that we forget that there's a whole nother realm that we're not seeing because we haven't turned our head. Um, I think um, there's a lot more that goes into it, but I think it's more about alchemy than the Black Madonna. Um, so what I would do is look up some books maybe and see if there's some, if you wanted to go deeper in this topic, not necessarily alchemy, because right now we're talking more about the Black Madonna and the cosmos and where everything literally comes from. Um, let her guide you because she will, whether you're on Amazon, whether you're going to go on, depending on where you get your media from, it's out there. You have to find it. You have to search for it because it is a mystery. It is going to be hidden.
Hmm.
It's not going to come to you without you working. Um, so I thought this was interesting too. So I wrote down, she is like the clay, like mud, from which Adam, the red earth, emerges from. She is the tree of life itself, and she gives birth to the divine child.
Mm. I did not think about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I thought, yeah, uh, she, it's very interesting because it's like, there's so much you can't, because she's so expansive and so, um, beyond our comprehension. There's no boundaries, there's no labels, there's no, there's no container that we can put her in. So she is going to be represented by all of it because she is, right?
Right.
Let's see here. This is with the assistance of Black Madonna. So when we're talking about the Black Madonna and the old matrix is dissolved so that we can transform, so transformation can take place. So if we have that matrix, we can, and we break that matrix apart, that's what helps us to actually transmute.
Hmm.
It's, yeah, I just have a little bit of stuff now. So like The primavera translates into the first matter, so that helps you understand that like it is the first,
Yeah, I
the
did
black.
not know what that meant, but I figured it had something to do with like the beginning.
Yeah, it's the raw un. Okay, words are hard. Raw undefinitive potential from which all physical elements and existence itself arose, right?
Yeah,
Which
I
is just
mean,
the same thing of
yeah, the raw undefinitive meaning like it doesn't have boundaries. Like it
right,
doesn't have
right.
lines drawn in the sand. It's undefined.
Yeah. Um, and if we go back to the great work is which is the process of revelation, incarnation, illumination, and transfiguration. The material plane, it is the science of transmuting lead into gold, and on the subtle plane, it's the science of transmuting the primavera to the preconscious soul into gold, the awakening of the soul that is reunited with the cosmic realm.
Yeah,
So
that explains
basically,
that. Everything you just kind of talked about better
yeah,
in one
yeah.
one sentence, essentially.
So that's our goal, is to be connected with divinity again, which is in layman's term is what we talk about when we die, we go to heaven,
Yes.
right? Dying is transformation, heaven is divinity, and that's what our soul is kind of longing for. That's why we're here. That's why you and I question everything and are trying to get to a higher place, if you will. Everything.
Emphasis on everything.
Oh God. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I really think like that is a good, really think that's a good foundation for that. I think it's a good window. I mean,
Dude, if we
you
didn't just
know,
lay the freaking foundation for you, I don't know what will.
so it's something that right now, if you are studying and you are going through this like transformation, it's something to put in your bonnet for maybe later or to carry around with you so that you can start like scrapbooking ideas and thoughts that go along with it.
Yeah, it's like we gave you the blueprint, and it's up to you on what you choose to do with that blueprint, essentially. Where you want to put it, what you want to do with it. It's just a rough draft. It's like, here's your
Right.
rough draft blueprint. You need to elaborate on this and decide how to build it.
Absolutely, because I'm sure we missed a lot of things.
Oh,
I'm sure that,
yes, we did. Yes, we did.
yeah,
Because there were some things where I'm like, I'm not opening that can of worms. That's
right,
for other people to decide if they want to go into.
right, right. That's a big thing of like, because even like in alchemy, like there's a king and queen, and they have birth, and the king is the sun, and the
Yeah.
earth, or the queen is the moon, and then they give birth to a hermetic child that is uh has both sexes. What's it called? Af,
Yeah.
af, herma, her, hermaphrodite,
Hermaphrodite.
hermaphrodite. It has both sex because it comes from the sun, it comes from the moon, and it like they birth this after a marriage, they birth this alchemical child. And that's a lot. Oh,
Yeah.
so there is this part about Queen of Sheba has reincarnated as Eve, the mother of Cain and Abel, um, progenitor, progen it of humanity. The original mother matter,
Generator of merit.
it's progen it or her generator.
The originator, basically. It's like
Oh,
a person or thing from which a person, animal, or planet or plant is descended or originate from.
so that's interesting because I'm like the Queen of Sheba, which we haven't heard at all. Like, but she was reincarnated as Eve, the mother of Cain and Abel.
Hmm.
And she later incarnates as the Black Madonna in her life as the Queen of Sheba. Okay, so
Interesting.
that was full circle.
Yep. That was false.
Uh,
Yep.
The arrival of Queen Sheba represents what is being attempted at our present time. Humanity must find the Black Madonna who gives into her hand the power, honor, and strength of dominion. She who bears upon her head the crown fashioned from the rays of the 12 shining stars, who is like the bride arrayed from her bridegroom, the golden inscription, as queen I will rule, and of my realm will there be no end for all who find me and explore me with obtuseness, invention ness and presence. Sorry, your girl's dyslexic and can't understand words. I don't have the tools to sound them out. You're welcome. Describes the task of our time. So right there, that is kind of like it helps me understand what we're going through at this time,
Hmm.
or at least helps me endure it because I have her with me.
Right. Which I agree with. I feel like it feels
Mhm.
good to know that there is this deity that, again, is the ultimate divine feminine. Makes me feel good about being a woman, and on top of it, loves me regardless of what I'm going through.
Well, and that's the thing. If Eve gave birth to Cain and Abel, both victim and murderer, they she loves them all equally,
Hmm.
right? So I feel like if we understood this, if we understood what this like represented, we wouldn't necessarily be so quick to blame and shame people or even punish them for what they were doing because they don't know what they're doing. And if anything, that's what I would like to for people to take away from this is really sitting with compassion and how to be in a compassionate place, even when the whole world is not being compassionate.
Yeah,
Because really, that's what we need more of, is just compassion.
true. Absolutely.
Because the one thing that I've really been trying to ingrain in my brain right now is A, being enough, that I am enough, and believing in, that I am enough. But also, how do I motivate without shame or guilt? How do I motivate without punishment? So these are the things that I carry along with me right now in my little satchel of tools to like if something comes at me that's a little bit trying, that wants to rock me out of my center, these are the things that I hold long is how do I do that without shame and guilt?
Yeah,
Now, that does not mean that you allow. That does not mean that you just passively sit there and let anything happen, right? Like it's we have to stop judging thing as bad or good. And I just had this conversation yesterday. When you are managing people or when you're mothering people, if we've known the mother that gives the child everything, and then they have no boundaries and they don't know how to do anything for themselves. And they kind of become what we call spoiled brats, right? It spoils. So, but also we know being too hard on a child, on a person, that that also has a different effect as well. It doesn't, we're not getting the fruit of that labor, right? The fruit isn't good. So the when we're walking forward, just because we think it's bad or wrong doesn't necessarily mean it is. So if I have a boyfriend that isn't serving my highest purpose, we're walking in two separate places. Um, it's really in my best interest and his best interest, her best interest, to sever the ties so that we're free to go our separate ways and evolve into something better,
Right.
right? But what we do is we think breakup is bad and wrong. I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to. We get into this ego place about it. And we don't do the right thing because it's going to cause harm. Harm is not always bad. You don't leave the dead leaf on the plant, you cut it away. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with, I mean, we're not judging the dead leaf, right? It's just a dead leaf. But when we start to do things that we think are bad and wrong in the real world, like firing a person, like if I can see that this person is not thriving in my presence, then what's the point of us having this together, right? We're not, and it's not judging them. It's not saying that they're inept to like do this or, that they are dumb or they're unmotivated or anything like that. They're not thriving in the dirt that I put them in. So I need to change the soil. So that means we need to uproot them and put them in a sunnier place or put them in a darker place. But that means
Hmm.
not with me. So of course, like if I don't think that I'm enough for this person to grow, I take that personally and think there's something wrong with me, which is not the case. It's just the fact that their roots are in the wrong soil. And I'm not giving them what they need. They have something else they need. They need to go somewhere else where they're going to get what they need, right?
Right.
So this is the thing is like even raising children is exactly the same way. Like I've made it very clear to Trinity, I'm not going to email your teachers because I'm also not going to call your boss when you're sick, right? So you need this kind of like tool to talk to authority and get what you need and be clear with communication so that you can translate that out into the world. So when you have a big girl job, you don't have your mom calling your boss,
Right.
right? And you don't even have to think about it twice because you've already done it over and over again and you know it's fine, right? You're not second guessing yourself. It's not like you're doing something wrong. It's the fact that it's clear communication. And that's really what we need is we need this clear communication, but we don't do it because we think it's bad and wrong.
Yes.
And
Your TED Talk.
that's my
Well, I
TED Talk.
think I don't know how that came up because I can't remember because I got too involved in what you were saying, but it is a good intro to our next two episodes too, because we did do a soft dive on the four agreements, but a lot of what you said has a lot to do with the four agreements as well as all of season one and the beginning of season two.
Right,
To where if you are doing the work, it gets easier to handle situations like what you were talking about. It gets easier to remember that you shouldn't take anything personally and that, as long as you're being impeccable with your words, you're doing the best you can, and that's going to help the situation and help you help them, help
right,
yourself. Um,
right. Well,
so
it's
if
like that rock bottom kind of thing, right? Like you have to hit rock bottom or you just don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, I would say definitely sometimes I feel like you do. There are certain things when you're too headstrong or you're not moving the way that you need to be moved that you do
Mm-hmm.
have to hit rock bottom to then go the other path.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But I feel like that all of what you just said is a good intro too, because we're going to be talking about the four agreements even further in depth because it's easy to say them and sometimes it's hard to really understand them in depth. Just like it's easy to use words that we think we know and not really understand the depths of the words that we're using because words do
Yeah,
matter, as we know, because that's your living, breathing, essence going out into the world. So,
it spells.
yep,
Hmm.
show is. Show is, baby. Well, friends, I think that we've covered the Black Madonna in as much depth as the two of us would like to go into it. There's more that you could go into. There's more research to be had if you feel so called to. And um, there's a lot of knowledge to be gained in that. Even like Nicole had said, just sitting with her, trying to feel the energy, meditating on it, things like that. There's plenty of different ways you could go about learning more or getting a deeper, stronger understanding for the Black Madonna. But um, like we always say, we invite you to do the work, man.
Hmm. Well, and she's in your shadow work, like she's there.
Hmm.
She's waiting for you. So you're not
Absolutely.
going to do it alone.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hmm.
All right, y'all. Do you have anything further?
I don't think so.
Alrighty, well, then we will see you in the next two episodes and have a good week, y'all.
Bye.